I'm sorry. Governor Brown?
Yeah, I do want to point out that through the Cal Grant program, the State General Fund is adding another $750 million, and that means the state is funding about 59% of the core teaching, core education expenses. So that's real, and every time you increase tuition, then the state has to increase its Cal Grant program automatically, because Cal Grant is what you call an entitlement, and it's on automatic pilot. So whatever the costs are, those fall right back onto the general fund. So the business about the pensions, there was a holiday. People thought life was better than it was, and now the UC is trying to correct for that. But I would note that when you add defined benefit into the salary, that it is close to market, that magic market formula. Things look a lot better. And the defined benefit is a very, at this point in our history, rare kind of benefit. It's really something. It's a government-sponsored, vested right annuity program that 90% of the people do not enjoy. So when employees are asked to kick in more money for their pension, they should feel good about that, because that's a pension that they and their spouse will collect until both of them are gone. This is something that used to be more widespread. So I don't think we should ever lose sight of the fact that this is a real big benefit stabilizer, but it's long-term. It's not today. So sometimes when people step up and complain that things aren't so good, things are very good when you think of the rest of your life and the life of your spouse, because you're covered. And we're putting a lot of money, and you're probably going to have to put in more money, depending upon how the return on your pension fund goes into the future. And we don't know whether we'll have the same yield as we've had before. So I did want to point that. The other more general point here is, the state has, if we think of ourselves as part of California, and then our common institutional effort is government spending. Well, our government spending is about $140 billion if you take all the spending. The general fund's about $96 billion. And decisions are made. Decisions are made about prisons. Decisions are made about health care, child care, welfare. All that. But so all these things are made in the legislature and the governor try to work through the priorities. And that's the way it is. Maybe you need to make a more effective argument to do better than you're getting. But up there in the legislature, there are all these people saying they want. And I can just tell you, as someone who's been watching this process for 4 decades, the desires are endless. And desires have a way of transmogrifying into needs. And needs have a curious way of transforming into rights. And rights have a tendency to turn into lawsuits. And that's kind of where we are. Desire, need, right, lawsuit. And so we're trying to manage all that. Now, for whatever it is, your desire, need, right lawsuit machine is not as effective as the inmates in our prisons, because they have turned their desires into very effective rights that are being validated as we speak by the federal judiciary. And we're having in fact, we just allocated $315 million to buy more prison beds solely because of pressure from the 3 federal judges that are currently in charge of our prison system. So if you could find a way to find a deprivation of one of the Bill of Rights because of your funding inadequacy, you could then sue the state, and we would have to pay whatever you want. So maybe some of your clever Bolt Hall, UCLA, Irvine lawyers can figure out why your desires, although they may have turned into needs, have not yet been able to evolve into rights. Because rights do get vindicated outside the democratic process. They are handled in the judicial process, over which the politicians don't control. Anyway, I do want to then just end this little detour by saying that you have to look at everything has to be on the table here. What is it, whether it's the enrollment growth or the faculty workload. Again, desires are endless, but which desires do we want to, which desires do we validate? And we say we, who's we? So we is the regents, the Regent is the university, is the legislature, the governor, and also to the people, as we saw in Proposition 30. So it's a process of making collective decisions through this messy democratic process. And so I think we have to, it isn't just, we want to keep growing. We want to expand. We need more market share at our medical school, or whatever the hell it's going to be. You got to really, at least I am going to look at, how do I balance that off against other things? And one of the other things is tuition. And this is remarkable when you look at UC compared to the Ivy League and other schools, the way the Pell Grants, the low income, the Cal Grant, we're doing quite a lot. And now the legislature, under the leadership or pressure, depending on how you want to look at it, of the Speaker, is now going to add a middle class scholarship. That's going to be several $100 million. That, on a yearly basis, is more than our increase to the university. Maybe had you been lobbying a little more powerfully, you might have turned that into a direct investment in the university. But it's not going to turn out that way. It's going to turn out to be something called a middle-class scholarship. Anyway, having said all that, I do think your overall cost structure has to be looked at. And that, I understand, might involve sacred cows, but all the sacred cows have to look into it. And I understand and I feel your pain that it all looks good, but in my work we only deal in goods. There aren't that many bads, and my job is to curtail good. If I don't curtail good, we create bad. That's called deficits and other problems. So I do think this tuition, I think the point about the reliable, the steady, non-volatile component, very, very important. But the amount of tuition is something, and maybe it's just nostalgia. But I was one of those people who went to the university when it was $126 a semester, and we can't get that out of our heads. A lot of people think that way. So I'm going to be working to keep that tuition down, and that's in competition with these wonderful words like quality, excellence, and then all the components of that, which faculty ratio, how much online you have, course credits to completion. And there's all sorts of cost drivers, and I don't think you've added all the cost drivers, at least in the objective way that I think they ought to be looked at. And I think you've got to make some, look at it hard. I'm not trying to say, I'm not ready for a conclusion, but we've got to look at cost drivers. Enrollment growth is a driver. Lowering faculty-student ratio is a driver. Building more buildings are all drivers. And you got to look, there's only so much money, and I know everybody thinks we have a right to it. It's the greatest and the best, but that's what everybody says. They say now that preschool, that if we don't get kids before 4 or 3 or 2, we've lost it. Well, if I take that logic, which they're telling me now is science, that's billions of dollars that we're going to have to spend every year to bring down from kindergarten to 4 years, 3 years, 2 years. Those are big, but they're desires. But just because somebody says the synapses of the brain need to be stimulated by some government preschool program doesn't mean we're going to buy it. And we have to trade that off against prisons, UC, and all the rest of it. So I know you're university focused, but we have to take the larger picture into account, and we have to look hard at all the cost drivers that you can alter by regental decision. And I just want to signal that I'll be looking hard at all of them, however obvious their righteousness is, because from my larger context, righteousness is only one element. We have to look at the overall cost, including tuition increases and how that affects various families throughout the state.
Well, the governor gave me the perfect segue, because we are going to... Oh, sorry.
Nathan, I'm sorry. Governor, thank you very much for your comments. I think it was really important that we hear from you. And you said a lot, and I think we need to kind of sort all this out, but I think we can get a better sense of direction about what we have to do and where we're going to go. You will hear later on, some a presentation on, cost drivers and how we're going to become more efficient and whatnot. I think we're working very diligently in trying to make that happen. But your being here is really important to us, and I thank you for that, because I think that helps us to move faster and better. And I really heard a lot of good stuff in what you said. We just have to sort it out. So I want to thank you for that. And so now I'm going to move on. I think, Hadi, you wanted to say you had a question?
No. After Governor's comments, I take my comments back. I have to, Governor, I have to read the record to see exactly what was said. But thank you very much for that. I think my only comment was that some of these programs don't make sense. It doesn't make sense that CSU gets $438 million, and for the same exact situation, we don't get anything. That was my point. And I understand the legal side, so maybe that was the best advice. So, Charlie, you have to look into the state's obligation to pay for our retirees' contribution. So,
okay, I would like to comment. You're making what is called an argument, and that argument has to be made to the legislature. However, there's historic reasons and there are political reasons. So, but that's not in the control of the regents. The control of these drivers, faculty-student ratio, how much enrollment, if any, do you want to add, and how to measure compensation, and how much do you want to pay, and what effect that has on recruitment, retention, all the rest of that. That is the regental responsibility. And I can just tell you from my experience, everybody has a good argument. But at the end of the day, what can we control, and do we have enough of the facts and the values set out that we can make some good decisions? And that's really what these are hard decisions. We're measuring, we have to look at things that aren't exactly commensurate. You measure faculty ratio with a seismic upgrade or something, and timing. So these are hard decisions, but people make them in their lives, and they live within budgets. And I just want to emphasize again this idea that tuition is a free good. All you have to do is send the bill to the students, and they'll go and borrow it through their student loan capacity. That's kind of how we've covered our tough times here. So that's an avenue I'm going to work hard to make more difficult. That's what I'm trying to alert. But I'm not going to do it without a lot of work and consultation and honest inquiry into what the implications are long term of whatever is decided.